UFC 304 has been announced for Manchester, England by having it for US prime time. So the time of the card is going to be as usual. That means 10 p.m. Eastern American time, meaning 3 a.m. for the UK audience. And you know they're going to have Leon and Belal as the main event. Try staying awake for Leon versus Belal at 5 in the morning. I feel so bad for the UK audience. America spinning the block with this one for that 1776 thing. I say give the UK their time slot. I personally like the middle of the day fights every now and then. And I think the 304 card should be catered to the UK audience. I know they've done that before. They've done it with some of their other cards over there, and maybe they're not doing it this time because it didn't go as well according to the numbers. We know a lot of fans like to watch it at nighttime, or they at least expect fights to be at night. But man, that's kind of messed up. Leon versus Belal Muhammad, you already know that's going to be the fight. And if that's the actual main event, 5 in the morning to watch that, even if John Jones and Conor gave you some of their supply, I don't even know if that's strong enough to keep you awake for that one. Just that fight though. Every other fight from Aspinall to if they have Michael Page on it or Arnold Allen, like all the other fighters are going to be super exciting, very fun, but then Leon and Belal, we got to get out of the way. It's the fight that needs to happen, and I know a lot of fans are not super excited about that fight, but Leon's manager did say that he's going to be on the Manchester card, and his next opponent is most likely going to be Belal Muhammad. Couldn't they put it on a fight night in like Madagascar or something? Now, I've been thinking about this. Is Leon versus Belal better as a main event or a co-main event to Tom Aspinall? Because if it's the main event, and it's a natural path to sleeping, right? With all the bang energy and be on whatever you want, no one's going to judge. The main event, Leon vs. Belal, is going to make you drowsy, and then it's going to help you go into a deep sleep immediately after the fight. But if it's the co-main event, you might fall asleep while Tom Aspinall's fighting, and we all don't want that. Leon vs. Belal has to happen. You know, we got to get it over with. I was thinking maybe put it in the early prelims or as a main event of a fight night. No, I'm kidding. We have to have that fight and get it over with. Hopefully we see the Leon Edwards that came out in the first fight with him too. The super aggressive Leon that you hardly ever see. And hopefully Belal has Habib in his corner, because when Habib's in Belal's corner, he fights the way he fought Sean Brady. Make the fight 3 rounds, please. Main event, or the other title fight, should be Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blaydes, in my opinion. I have a feeling they're going to do Ciryl Gane, but Ciryl Gane does not deserve a title shot. He got 1,000 title shots already, and he hasn't beat a legitimate top contender that's a skilled fighter and not just a knockout artist that happened to get his way into the top 5 ever since he beat Alexander Volkov almost 3 years ago, right? His other wins are against Spivak, Tai Tuivasa, and Derek Lewis. And look where all 3 of these guys are now. Volkov was a good fighter, and I want to see Ciryl Gane fight someone else on that caliber before he gets a title shot. So like the winner of Volkov and Pavlovich versus Ciryl Gane would be a good fight, and have Tom Aspinall get his rematch with Curtis Blaydes, because Blaydes deserves it. He just destroyed Jailton Almeida, and Jailton Almeida was a legitimate contender, not the funnest guy to watch, but Blaydes made that fight fun, and he beat a legitimate contender. Regardless of his ranking, Jailton Almeida absolutely destroyed Derek Lewis. In Belal terms, he would destroy anybody else on that skill level that Ciryl Gane has been recently beating. Blaydes and Aspinall have unfinished business, and I do think it's one of the tougher fights for Aspinall in the heavyweight division, a guy who can stop his wrestling, keep it in the stand-up. Now, Blaydes is getting better with his striking, but it's going to be difficult for him to handle the speed of Aspinall and his clear boxing technique. I do think Tom Aspinall should be able to beat Curtis Blaydes, and it's also a tougher fight than if he fought Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane doesn't have the takedown defense or just the wrestling skill in general to handle someone like Tom Aspinall. If the fight gets taken to the ground, au revoir for Ciryl Gane. I mean, Francis Ngannou easily took down Ciryl Gane. Only imagine what Tom Aspinall would be able to do. Striking-wise, I could see Ciryl Gane defeating Tom Aspinall, but this is an MMA fight, and Tom Aspinall will most likely get him to the ground and submit him probably in the first or second rounds. So I like the more competitive fight with Curtis Blaydes. I think it would be a fun fight. Curtis Blaydes will contest him head-on, straightforward, back and forth in the striking. Some other fights that would be really fun. Bring on Money Moicano versus Paddy Pimblett. They've been wanting to fight each other. Moicano wants money, and this is a bigger fight than pretty much anything else he can get at the moment. I know there is like Beneil Dariush, who would also be a good fight for Money Moicano, but Paddy Pimblett should be the guy next for Moicano. Who would win this fight? I would absolutely go with Moicano. Both guys are good on the ground, but Moicano's definitely a better striker. He's shown that throughout his career. Paddy's striking is still not on this level. Clear-cut, easy difference in striking between the two. You also have to get Michael Page on there. He's one of the most dynamic and flashiest fighters in the UFC. He came here to bring a show. Now, we've been talking about Stephen Thompson being his next opponent. That would be awesome, but Michael Page and Wonderboy have both made it seem like they don't want to fight each other. Number one, they're friends. And number two, they both said it was going to be boring. Trying to find the opening on each other would be quite difficult when they're both so highly skilled in the same discipline. They come from the same sport before MMA. And it could turn out to be a point fight for 3 rounds. And the fact that they are friends, they wouldn't risk it. Therefore, it'd be less likely we see a big knockout or something. So the fact that they both seem not to want to fight each other, we could do Michael Page versus either Jeff Neal. That'd be really fun. Or him versus Gilbert Burns for a higher step up in the rankings, but a more difficult fight for MVP, considering that Burns is a grappler. But MVP wants to rise quickly. I know the UFC understands that MVP's up there in age and they can't just build him up. So put him on the fast track, and Gilbert Burns would be that guy, considering that Jack Della is most likely fighting Shavkat. Ian Machado is most likely fighting Colby Covington. Gilbert Burns is a guy who's open, and that'd be a really interesting fight for Michael Page, a striker versus grappler matchup, even though Burns is a decent striker. But Burns is older, he's been injured throughout his career, it seems like he's in a bit of a decline, and now is the time for someone like MVP to use him as a stepping stone, which is really, really tough to say as someone who's a fan of Gilbert Burns. But, when you're that much older, you've been fighting for so long, you've been knocked out and dropped so many times in your career, and MVP is that potential star at 170 that the UFC wants to capitalize on, maybe that's the fight you do. MVP versus Gilbert Burns is probably the fight to make. And purely on the momentum and confidence of the two fighters at the moment, I can see MVP beating Gilbert Burns. Stylistically though, because of the grappling gap, I absolutely can see Gilbert Burns taking him to the ground and holding him down, where Michael Page will probably be extremely defensive off of his back to try not to get submitted by anything, but capitalizing as much as he can in the stand-up. I mean, the guy has such a longer reach. He's 6'3" with like an 80-inch reach. Gilbert Burns is only like 5'9", 5'10", with like a 71-inch reach, and without his kicks are going to be the general way where he can try to get in on MVP, but his hands are going to be falling short the whole time and open to get countered by MVP. One shot from this guy, and it could be lights out for Burns. And of course, you got Arnold Allen. You need to have him on that card versus Yair Rodriguez. That is the fight to make. That's the perfect fight. Allen had a very close decision loss to Movsar Evloev. Yair is coming off that loss against Brian Ortega, and it seems like a lot of fans are siding with Allen and Movsar and these younger guys coming up compared to the Yairs and Ortegas that have been around for a bit in terms of who's the more skilled fighter. And I think with a little bit fine-tuning, Arnold Allen could become one of the best featherweights on the planet. He's well-rounded, he's very physically strong, he has some of the best footwork, he's just reaching his prime though. And I think a fight with Yair Rodriguez can showcase a lot of what Arnold Allen is actually capable of. Whereas Yair didn't look great against Ortega. Other fighters you can have on the card, Paul Craig, of course, he always fights on the UK cards. And perhaps he can go up against Chris Curtis and throw on Muhammad Mokaev, why not? Muhammad Mokaev versus Amir Albazi if he's able to make his comeback. Or you could do Mokaev versus Royval. Throw Mokaev a top contender or something at this point. And that would be an awesome Manchester card, I think. Or at least the fights that are most likely going to happen. And leave in the comments, what would you guys do? How would you structure it? Where would you put the championship fights? What contenders versus who? And how excited are you for Leon versus Belal?